I'm throwing this dart at a map of every country in the world, and wherever it lands, I have to go. But I've never traveled anywhere in my entire life, so I have no idea what it feels like to be a real tourist. That's why I'm not just visiting one country, I'm visiting 10 countries in 10 days. Let's see where I'm going. We officially landed in our first country, Italy, which means it's time for the game plan.
Hey, I'm Ryan Trahan. Yeah, I'm in this video too, don't question it. Ethan, to prove that you're a real tourist, I challenge you to do 3 things in every country you visit. Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be fun. It's actually probably gonna be fun. But if you fail, I'll be super mad, really upset. Good luck.
Well, the challenge just got a whole lot harder. Not only do we have to visit 10 random countries in 10 days, we have to complete 3 tasks in each one. But we've only got 24 hours left, so let's head into Vatican City to find a souvenir. Oh, and by the way, that's my friend Leo. He will be helping me complete this challenge.
You just made it to Vatican City, time to explore St. Peter's Basilica.
This is the largest church on the planet, and one of the holiest places in the world. Built 400 years ago by some of the greatest artists to ever live, these holy doors open only once every 25 years. And somehow, we were lucky enough to experience it. Well, we couldn't find any souvenirs inside, but after some walking, we found this little shop on the side of the street, and
I got this Colosseum souvenir. I thought it'd be a lot cooler than, a magnet or a water bottle or a hat or, a t-shirt.
So that means task 1 is officially complete. But I still don't feel like a real tourist. So let's find some traditional food before Ryan starts getting mad. Along the way, we came across so many cool things. Ancient ruins, churches, and even a box with some dead guy's hand in it.
Why was there a hand in there? What the hell?
Well, we couldn't eat the hand, so let's keep looking. Down the street, we noticed a giant crowd of people at the bottom of a staircase.
There's so many steps.
So we climbed 196 stairs just to find absolutely nothing. There was not a single thing inside this building, but empty hallways and even more stairs. And now we're starving. So we need to find some food fast. One thing that we noticed is that Rome does have insanely beautiful architecture, like this 200-year-old fountain. I have never seen anything like this in America, but it is so damn packed everywhere we go. But at least one good thing that we found is that we found this really cool pizza place right by the fountain that I think is going to be our authentic Italian pizza. So welcome to Pizza in Trevi, home to the most authentic Italian pizza. It's crazy to think that 2,000 years ago, pizza started off as a cheap street food for poor workers, and now it's loved by everyone on Earth. But is it actually any good? Let's take our first bite. The pizza was insanely good, but for some odd reason, they put the cheese in these weird clumps instead of evenly spread out, which I've never seen before. Now that we've tried authentic Italian pizza, that means
task 2 complete.
But we still need to find a famous landmark, and we only have a few hours left until the sun sets. So let's wander through the streets to try to find a landmark. We wandered, and wandered, and wandered some more. We even passed this really cool dome building, but
I just realized that I think every single picture I've ever seen in this building is probably a drone shot, because I really don't know if there's a really good spot to look at it, because it's all really high. We actually found an alley that gives us a decent view of the dome, so it's pretty cool actually.
But we weren't satisfied. We needed to find the best landmark Italy has to offer, and that's when I realized something. It was in front of us the whole time.
I got this Colosseum.
And if you thought this mini souvenir was cool, wait until you see the real one. This is the Colosseum. Nearly 2,000 years ago, these stands were filled with over 50,000 people. Gladiators fought for their lives, wild animals were unleashed into the arena, and emperors watched from their thrones. And now it looks like this. Honestly, this is one of the coolest things I've seen in my entire life, but it's kind of sad to see how much it's changed over time. And there are so many tourists. Walking through these ruins makes me realize how brutal life was in ancient Rome. I'm just glad I get to make YouTube videos instead of fighting lions, because honestly, the lions wouldn't stand a chance. And just like that, task 3 is complete. But I can't call myself a real tourist yet, because we still have 9 more countries to visit.
Which means it's time for the Wheel of Destiny.
On this wheel is every country bordering Italy, and whichever country it lands on, we have to go to.
Moment of truth.
Let's see where we're going next. After an entire day of traveling, we finally made it to Zurich, Switzerland. And we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck!
But we've only got 24 hours left, and the only way to get to the souvenir shop is to travel 3 hours down this 22-mile long river. We were told we would be sailing with a big group, so we were expecting a yacht or at least a nice boat, but when we arrived, we were all alone with this waiting for us. Let's just hope we don't get wet. So we hopped into our tiny inflatable raft and set sail. The water was thrashing, the raft was shaking, and it felt like we were seconds away from flipping. Just kidding, it actually was kind of chill. This feels like the perfect way to relax after our chaotic day in Italy yesterday. Like we don't even have to paddle or anything. We just got to lay back, listen to music, and let the river carry us closer and closer to the Swiss Alps. I wonder what it's like up there. After a while, we finally made it to the heart of Zurich where we found Teddy's souvenir shop. There were so many cool things to choose from these cuckoo clocks to these jewelry boxes. But it was these authentic pocket watches that really caught my eye. Just look at the amount of detail on them, which means
Task 1 is complete.
well, that was exciting. But if we actually want to earn the title of real tourist, we need to track down some authentic Swiss food before Ryan starts getting mad.
If you fail, I'll be super mad, really upset.
And to do that, we have to ride this funky looking thing called a polybahn. You'd think that a 2-minute ride would be fast, right? Nope. I could literally run faster than this thing. It only goes 5 miles an hour, but it led us to what our tour guide swore was the best view in all of Zurich. And honestly, I think I have to agree. I could have stood here all day, but time was ticking and we were getting hungry. So we roamed the streets until we found Raclette Stubble, home to the most authentic Swiss food. There aren't too many options to choose from, but I think we'll settle with this bubbling pot of Swiss fondue, which apparently began as a survival hack to make stale bread and old cheese edible. And now it's one of Switzerland's most iconic dishes. But is it actually any good? Let's take our first bite. It was really good, at first. The cheese tasted like cheese. But after dipping nothing but bread and potatoes into it, it got boring quick. We just got done trying authentic Swiss fondue, which means task 2 is officially complete. But the journey isn't over yet because we still have to find a famous landmark. And I think we have the perfect one in mind. The only problem? We have to travel 4 hours to get there. So if we want to arrive before the sun sets, we better leave now. The only option we have is to hop on a bus full of strangers, which we thought would kind of suck, but honestly, it isn't that bad. After 2 hours driving and taking in the views, we officially made it to Interlaken, the adventure sport capital of Europe, which explains why there are so many people paragliding all around the city. Unfortunately, we can't stay here forever because we still need to go all the way up to the top of that giant mountain. But the only way to get there is to get on the highest train ride in all of Europe. This train ride is awesome. I mean, I know I keep saying this, but look at the view. It literally looks like a painting. I honestly don't see how any other country can top this. The higher we climb, the more unbelievable it gets. And now, we are so close to Switzerland's most famous landmark. But to get there, we have to pass through one of the wildest places you'll ever see. Switzerland's Ice Palace. This place was carved into Europe's longest glacier nearly 100 years ago. And it's an insane maze of frozen hallways and sculptures. We even found this chipmunk? I really hope he's okay. It honestly just feels surreal that we're randomly in a block of ice floating in the sky. And just yesterday we were sweating in the streets of Italy. After almost going insane trying to find the way out, we found the exit which led to this elevator. It was packed, but we squeezed in and kept climbing higher and higher until the doors opened. I don't think anything could have prepared us for it. We're literally standing 11,000 feet in the air, surrounded by snow so bright it's blinding, and snowy peaks as far as the eye can see. It almost looks like a movie. And of course, we couldn't just stand there, so we grabbed a couple of tubes and flew down the mountain. This was maybe one of the best things we did on this trip. And after racing up and down the mountain,
Oh my God, I'm gonna hit you! I'm gonna hit you!
we slowly started to forget the freezing cold. And just like that, task 3 is complete. We still have 8 more countries to visit, which means it's time for the Wheel of Destiny. On this wheel is every country bordering Switzerland, and whatever country it lands on, we have to go to.
Let's see where we're going. Hey guys, we just made it to Berlin.
And we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck.
But we've only got 24 hours left, so let's head into Berlin to find a souvenir. We started off our day by walking through the Unter den Linden, Berlin's Grand Boulevard, and it's amazing. There's historic buildings all along the streets, statues everywhere, and thankfully, way fewer crowds than Italy, so we can actually stop, look around, and take it all in at our own time. Now, I'm gonna be honest, Germany wasn't really the country I was most excited for. I've got nothing against it, but I've always viewed Germany as having this cold and uninviting vibe. But as soon as we walked through the city, I realized I might have been way off. One of the first places we come across is Brandenburg Gate. Seeing it in person is surreal. Photos don't do justice to how massive it is. These columns are towering, and standing under it, you feel like you're walking through a portal into history. You can almost imagine the rallies and speeches that happened here.
Tear down this wall.
A few blocks later, we spot the Lessing Monument tucked into a little square. It's quieter here. There's no big tour groups, and it's just relaxing walking through the park. Even the people around here seem really nice and happy. Then the Berlin Cathedral comes into view, and wow. Up close, the details are insane. There's arches, angels, and carvings everywhere. From a distance, it honestly looks unreal. But eventually we come across this 2-story shop packed full of crazy souvenirs. There were so many options to choose from that it was kind of overwhelming. The shelves are full of glasses, knives, and even some shirts that read, "I love German boys." We didn't want something cheap or gimmicky, we wanted something that actually felt, well, German. And that's when we found it, a handcrafted music box. When you turn the crank, it plays Edelweiss. The music box itself felt perfect, which means
Task 1 is officially complete.
though we found a pretty cool souvenir, exploring the city had already taken up a lot of our day. So we needed to hurry if we wanted to complete our second task. And on the way, we came across this. From the outside, it looks simple, but once you walk in, the ground drops. The slabs get taller and the city noise fades. This is the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. The field is made up of 2,711 concrete slabs that form a giant maze and commemorate the 6 million Jews that were murdered across Europe. Leo and I felt uneasy, and honestly, I think that was the whole point. There aren't any names on the stones or signs telling you what to feel, so we took a minute, paid our respects, and kept on moving. A few blocks later, we stumbled across a little restaurant called Margelchen. Unlucky for us, the menu was all in German, but after managing to translate it, there were so many good options to choose from. They had schnitzels, stews, and even a sausage platter. But after some back and forth, we decided on sauerbraten. This dish goes back hundreds of years. And back in the day, before fridges existed, this marinade wasn't just for flavor. It was how people preserved their meat. And over time, it became one of Germany's national dishes. But is it actually any good? Let's take our first bite. At first, I thought it was pretty good. But after a couple more bites, I realized that I was probably just starving. The meat didn't really have any flavor to it and tasted weirdly sour, so I wasn't too keen on finishing it. But at least we still tried it, and that officially means that Task 2 is complete. I'm actually starting to feel like a tourist now, but we have already spent half our day in Berlin. And if we want to keep Ryan happy, we've got to move fast.
If you fail, I'll be super mad, really upset.
On the way, Berlin had a couple of surprises waiting for us. This is the highest swing in Europe, 120 meters above Berlin's rooftops. The view from up here is amazing, but to see it while swinging above the city is a whole different experience. You start off slow and simple, but surely enough, you get swung further and further. And each time it happens, was just as terrifying as before. I didn't realize it until after that I was supposed to put my hands through some loops on the chains. And I swear, if the guy pushing me didn't pull me back when he did, I literally would have fallen and been dangling off that rope. So after a couple of swings, I was glad to get down. Leo was definitely enjoying this a lot more than I was. But even still, when they asked him if he wanted to turn up the heat and get twisted around, he was more than happy to play it safe.
Do you want to twist? No, thank you.
There's a reason this is my first time ever leaving the US. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. It's all fun and games until you're slipping on ice or being struck by a guy riding a bike in the city. Most people don't realize that when accidents happen, whether it's at the airport, on a train, or doing a crazy travel challenge like this, companies make it a nightmare to file an insurance or injury claim. That's why Morgan & Morgan have helped more than 500,000 people recover over $30 billion after getting injured. Like one man in Florida who was offered nothing by his insurance company after he was injured, then talked to Morgan & Morgan and walked away with $20 million. And starting a claim couldn't be easier. You don't even have to fly home. It takes just 8 clicks or less from your phone or laptop. If you're ever injured, even while traveling or filming a video like this, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description, or you can just scan the QR code on screen. After that experience, I needed something to calm me down and stop my hands from shaking. So when we spotted a funky sign that read Berlin Ice Bar, we couldn't resist ourselves. Inside, it felt like we stumbled into a little hidden gem. They even had a video which set up the backstory for this place. And even though it was all in German, I think we got the gist of it. At the entrance, we were greeted by some guy in this funky uniform. And the second we walked through the door, it got freezing cold. Everything inside is made entirely out of ice. The walls, the seats, and even the glass your drink is served in. There weren't too many people inside, and with the upbeat music pumping through the speakers, it all just felt like an awkward little nightclub. But I guess the concept was cool. No pun intended. It was a pretty nice place to take some photos, and luckily we managed to snap one right by the bar with our frosted drinks. I can't lie though, we're not the biggest fan of bars, and with only a couple of hours left in Germany, we couldn't waste time. We still have one last task to complete, and we have to move fast if we want to pull it off. And for our landmark, well, I think we had the perfect one in mind. This is the Berlin Wall. From a distance, it looks like a long street gallery. There's murals, tags, and all sorts of graffiti full of bright colors. But the story behind it is heavy. After World War II, Germany was split up between the Allies in the West and the Soviet Union in the East. Berlin, even though it was deep in East Germany, was divided the same way. Half the city was free, the other half was under Soviet control. Which meant if you lived in the East and wanted a better life, all you had to do was walk across the street. And that's exactly what people did. So in 1961, the Soviets built the Berlin Wall. Overnight, families were torn apart, friends were trapped on opposite sides, and for nearly 30 years, anyone who dared to escape risked their lives. Many were caught, some were killed, and others died trying. So when the wall fell in 1989, most of it was destroyed in celebration. But a few sections like this were left to remind you what it took to get here. Standing here now, it proves that things don't stay broken forever. Walls fall, cities rebuild, and life keeps moving forward. And just like that, Task 3 is officially complete. But we're not done yet because we still have 7 more countries to go before we can even think about calling ourselves real tourists. Which means it's time for the Wheel of Destiny. On this wheel is every country surrounding Germany, and wherever it lands, we have to go to next. Let's see where we're going. Hey guys, we just arrived in Poland, and we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck!
But we've only got 24 hours left, so let's head into Krakow to find a souvenir. We arrived in Poland super early, and the morning light made Krakow's old town look incredible. Right away, it felt busy, almost like Italy, which honestly I wasn't expecting at all. In my head, Poland was just farms and quiet little villages. But here we were, dropped right into the middle of a bustling square with people everywhere. But the vibe was totally different from what we'd felt in Germany. Over there, everything felt heavy, gray, and a little too serious. But here, there were bright pastel buildings, music spilling out from cafes, and heaps of people just hanging out. And honestly, looking back now, I think Poland had the best vibe out of any country we've been to so far. It feels safe, laid back, and just easy to enjoy. But then, towering over the square, we saw St. Mary's Basilica. Even though it was still under construction, like most of the cathedrals we've seen so far, it still looked pretty cool. And only a couple of shops down the street, we came across this neat little souvenir shop, appropriately titled Krakow Souvenirs. There's funky nutcrackers, goofy pens, and even these little mini puzzles. But what really caught our eye were these artistic candles. Each one looked hand-painted, covered in patterns and designs that just felt, well, Polish.
We just found this cool little candle jar, which means
Task 1 is officially complete. With another souvenir packed away, we were feeling a little more touristy, and it was time to chase down our second task, food, because if we don't, Ryan will be really mad.
If you fail, I'll be super mad, really upset.
We'd been wandering around Krakow for ages, looking for a spot our guide mentioned, and just when we thought we were lost, we spotted a sign, Jurai Kachowa, which apparently translates to the leaky cauldron. Walking in felt like stepping straight into something out of Harry Potter. The walls were all stone, envelopes dangled from the ceilings, and each table even had its own glowing little salt lamp. And no, sadly I didn't get to lick it. But the best part about it all was the menu. Instead of drinks, everything was potions. And when they arrived, they came out bubbling and smoking with dry ice pouring over the rim. They actually had to tell us that it wasn't safe to drink until the smoke settled. So we just sat there staring at it, and of course, snapping photos. And honestly, I think this spot gave us some of the best photos of the entire trip so far. Here we were in the middle of Poland drinking love potions and pretending we were wizards. It was random, it was weird, but it was one of the most fun experiences we had gone through on this trip. After our little magic potions, we finally felt like we were on the right track. And sure enough, we finally came across a restaurant to try our authentic Polish food. Welcome to Pyrgarnia Krakowski. I hope I said that right. Everybody so far had told us that this place was home to some of the best authentic Polish food that we could find in Krakow. So we were so excited to finally sit down and try it out for ourselves. We didn't eat much the entire day, so we thought we'd treat ourselves to something good. And that's when we settled on pierogi. These things are basically like Polish dumplings, and we actually managed to order two different types. One that was more sweet and the other more savory. But is it actually any good? Let's take our first bite.
Yes, this is very good. I'd probably give it an 8.7 out of 10. I am enjoying this a lot right now.
I'm actually kind of nervous because I'm a very picky eater. So it looks like it is filled up with, like, what is it, tomatoes is supposed to be? And let's see. It actually is really good. It tastes kind of like ravioli a little bit. Yeah, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Like, I'm gonna glaze it like crazy right now. Not a 10 though.
Okay, for someone as picky as me, this totally blew my expectations away. These were actually amazing. But then came the dessert ones. They looked pretty normal, I guess. Maybe just a tad wet and mushy, but inside they were filled with cherries?
It's pretty good. It's not terrible, but I'm not sure. I might give it like a 3.8 maybe.
That looks very nasty actually. The frosting tastes amazing. Inside tastes like nothing, yeah. The frosting I would give like a 9 out of 10. But like in general with all of it combined, yeah, like maybe like a 4. That was definitely the best authentic food we've had this entire trip. That'll be very hard to beat.
So with that, task 2 is officially complete. But the journey isn't over yet because we still need to find a famous landmark. And as we were walking off all that food, we accidentally stumbled upon this giant castle. This is Waywell Castle. Apparently Polish kings and queens used to live here, and it is old. Like some parts of it go all the way back to the 13th century, which is over 700 years ago. So yeah, that kind of just blows my mind. Walking through it, I kept on thinking about all the royals, nobles, and whoever else actually walked across these same cobblestones we were standing on. It felt like we had traveled back in time. There's huge stone walls, massive towers, and even a horse and carriage rolling by. But as cool as this was, we knew it wasn't the landmark we were after. So we left the city behind and headed towards the place we knew we couldn't skip, no matter how tough it may be. This is Auschwitz I. In the sign you see above the gate reads, Arbeit macht frei, German for work will set you free. Just yesterday, we were at a memorial in Germany, and that already felt heavy, but walking up to this gate, I don't really know what to say. It feels real in a way that I don't think I was ready for. Inside the camp, every building tells a different story, and Block 11 was one of the worst. Some people nicknamed this place the Death Block, or the Block of Terror. And right here, in its courtyard, thousands of prisoners were shot against this wall. This place was feared so much that most of the other inmates in the camp wouldn't even look at it as they walked by. Just further down the road, past fences of barbed wire, is Block 5. Inside, it looks like a museum, but then your brain starts to catch up. These are Cyclone B pellets. At first, they kinda just look like little pebbles, but once they hit the air, they turned into poison. That's what the Nazis used in the gas chambers. In a room right next to them are some of the actual canisters that carried Zyklon B, found and collected by the Allies when the camp was liberated. Seeing them laid out like this, behind glass, it messes with your head. They look so normal, but then you remember what they're used for and it just makes your stomach drop. Just around the corner, it hits even harder. These are people's things. There's rows of glasses, tiny children's shoes, canes, braces, and then there's suitcases, a whole room of them. Some of them are still marked with people's names and hometowns, and even if you wanted to read every single one, you can't. There's too many. It's weird. You usually think that history is just dates and numbers, but then you're standing in front of someone's suitcase and it stops being history. It's just a person. Someone who had a family, a home, and dreams that all ended right here. Just a short walk away is Auschwitz II Birkenau, the extermination camp built for mass murder. Trains used to roll in right here, through those gates, and stop along those tracks. From there, families were separated and lined up for selection. Apparently, some of the prisoners already working here would whisper to the new arrivals, "Alle gesund," or "everybody's healthy." And at first, people didn't even know what that meant. But later, it all started to make sense. Whoever looked strong enough were sent into the camp for forced labor, and everyone else, women, kids, the elderly, they were marched straight to the gas chambers. Next to those same tracks is a single freight car. It's just sitting there, empty now. But is here to remember the more than 400,000 Hungarian Jews who were deported here in 1944. They were crammed inside cars just like this, packed so tight that most couldn't even sit down. Some people suffocated before they even arrived, and for the ones who survived the journey, most were killed within hours of stepping out. The further we walked into the camp, the sadder it became. On one side, there's endless rows of barracks, and on the other side, they've been demolished. Nothing but grass and their chimneys remain. These were supposed to be the heaters for the barracks, but survivors said they barely worked. Now they just sit here, almost like markers, for all the people who once lived inside. Walking through these barracks is haunting. Apart from the brick walls, there's nothing. Just these 3-tier wooden bunks stacked side by side, like shelves more than beds. 6, sometimes even 8 people were crammed into a single level, with dirty straw for a mattress and lice everywhere. It didn't feel like a place people should have had to survive in, and honestly, just standing in there made me want to get out as fast as possible. As we step back out of the barracks, the buildings thin out. There's broken buildings, rubble, and bricks everywhere. That's when it hits us. The Nazis tried to erase this place. As the war turned against them, they blew up parts of the camp and burned records, hoping no one would ever know what happened. But even in the ruins, the truth still remains. Over 1 million lives ended here. And while this technically completes our last task in Poland, it doesn't feel that way. This wasn't just a task to check off. It's something that sticks with you for your life. We didn't talk much on our way out. We couldn't. We just left quietly with the promise to remember. That was an incredibly sobering day, and it really puts a silly challenge like this into perspective. But the journey isn't over yet because we still have 6 more countries to visit, which means it's time for
The Wheel of Destiny.
On this wheel is every country surrounding Poland, and wherever it lands, we have to go to next.
Let's see where we're going.
We've officially landed in our 5th country, Denmark. Leo and I cannot leave this country until we complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck.
But we've only got 24 hours left, so let's head into Copenhagen to find a souvenir. To find the ultimate Danish souvenir, we headed towards Copenhagen's waterfront, since everyone told us that's where the best gift shops are. And right away, the city just felt different. The streets were spotless, the air felt fresh, and everywhere we looked, people were out jogging, biking, or just sitting in parks. It kinda gave off this weirdly healthy vibe. like the whole city had its life together. Honestly, it almost felt too perfect, like we didn't belong there with our cameras and backpacks. But then, as we kept walking, we came across this massive crowd. It ended up being one of the most crowded spots we've seen so far, and of course, we had to find out what everyone was looking at. After squeezing our way up to the front, this is what was waiting for us. Just some sad woman on a rock. She's called the Little Mermaid statue, and turns out she's famous for some odd reason. Apparently she was built after some guy saw a ballet based off the fairy tale, and she now sits here on the water. I couldn't really believe it, but she's actually really small. Probably under 5 feet tall and honestly kind of worn down. Up close, you can see how dirty she is from the seawater. And with the huge crowd packed around, it was nearly impossible to even get a good view.
I'm just gonna say it, after spending the last week looking at statues, this was actually pretty anticlimactic.
Luckily, right by the waterfront, we spotted a souvenir shop crammed full of Danish trinkets. They had the usual sort of things you'd expect, like funky fridge magnets and touristy keychains. But tucked away in the corner, we found this miniature replica of the Little Mermaid statue.
It actually looks really surprisingly high quality.
Plus, everyone here clearly loves her, so it felt like the most Danish thing we could take home. So yeah, I think this was the perfect pick, which means Task 1 is officially complete. And by this point, we'd been wandering Copenhagen for hours. And honestly, we were starting to crash. But if we want to call ourselves a real tourist, we need to push through it. And that's when we saw it. This is Tivoli Gardens. And it's the third oldest operating amusement park in the entire world. It opened up in 1843, which would make it almost 200 years old. I can't lie, we were a little bit nervous going in. I mean, when you hear 200 years old, you don't exactly think the roller coasters would hold up well. But honestly, this place blew us away. The park is only 1 square block, but when you're inside, it feels massive. There's fairy lights everywhere, little themed lands tucked in the corners, and everything feels super clean and well put together. We also found out that Walt Disney actually brought his kids here, and that's apparently what inspired him to create Disneyland. And sure, I can admit it, Leo and I are kind of Disney adults. Well anyways, Tivoli had plenty of things to keep us busy. We managed to check out a live concert, gambled on these weird little postmen, and even screamed our heads off on a roller coaster. For a place we weren't sure about at first, Tivoli ended up being one of the highlights of this trip, but we didn't have time to sit around and enjoy it for long. Our 24 hours in Denmark were slipping away, and we still hadn't crossed off one of the most important tasks, trying Denmark's traditional dish. So as much as we didn't want to leave, we had to get moving. And sure enough, we somehow managed to find a spot with exactly what we needed. Welcome to Spromenaden, home to stocked flask, Denmark's national dish. It's basically thick slices of pork belly, fried until crispy and served with potatoes and parsley sauce. We didn't even know what stocked flask was before today, but then we saw this sign outside reading, Bayern's Best Stocked Flask 2019, which apparently means the city's best fried pork belly. That's a pretty bold claim. So, of course, we had to see if it lived up to the hype.
How do I eat this? I thought it was going to be horrendous. It just tastes like a really fat piece of bacon. Pretty good. I thought it was going to be really bad, but it's not bad.
It's actually just bacon. I love it though. I was expecting it to be more like steak or pork or more like just traditional like meat entree, but it kind of tastes like a breakfast side, but I like it.
The only thing is, it was really hard to cut through. And after a couple of bites, I realized it's not as flavorful as some of the bacon or other meats we have in America. It was decent, but I really don't know if I'd ever order it again outside this challenge. But hey, not everything has to be a 10 out of 10. We also realized that there were these little red cubes on the side, and at first we thought they were cranberries, so we tried them and yeah, they were pretty disgusting.
It's not cranberry.
They were pickled beets. I guess we missed that on the menu. But whether we liked it or not, that officially means Task 2 is complete. But the journey isn't over yet because we still have to find a famous landmark. And we've only got a few hours left until the sun sets, so we had to hurry. As we kept walking deeper into the city, I started thinking about everywhere we've already been. Like Italy was chaotic but fun, Switzerland was super chill, Germany felt really serious, and Poland honestly surprised me the most. By the end, that one might have been my favorite. But Denmark? I don't know, it just feels safe. It kind of blew my mind. Back home, you wouldn't leave your bike outside for 5 minutes without a lock. But here, people just lean them against walls like it's no big deal. Then, right over the hedges, there it is. Rosenborg Castle. It kinda looks like something straight out of a fairy tale. There's tall brick walls, green copper rooftops, and little towers sticking up everywhere. It's hard to believe this was actually built in the 1600s as a summer house. Like, imagine calling this a literal castle your summer house. Inside, it's packed with over 400 years of royal stuff. The walls are covered in all sorts of old portraits. Giant chandeliers hang from the ceilings, and after passing through a couple of rooms, you eventually end up in the Knight's Hall. This is where the coronation thrones sit, and they're literally guarded by silver lions. Like full-on life-size silver lions. It's kind of insane. But honestly, my favorite part wasn't the crowns or the thrones. It was this random prank chair. You sit, and boom, these little metal clamps pop out on your arms. Apparently the king used to trap guests in it for a laugh. But geez, if that ever happened to me, I don't think I could recover. The rest of it was interesting, I guess. For a castle, it's not very big. Oh, and the toilets? Yeah, not quite the royal luxury you'd expect. They had actual ladders running down them so someone could, clean it out for you after. That definitely made me appreciate modern plumbing. And just like that, task 3 is officially complete. But we're only halfway there. We still have 5 more countries standing between us and the finish line. And now it's time for the Wheel of Destiny. On this wheel is every country surrounding Denmark. And wherever it lands, we have to go. So let's see where we're going. We've officially landed in our 6th country, Sweden. And we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck.
So before we dive into the tasks, we decided to do something we haven't done yet. Check into the hotel and actually chill for a bit. And this one, let's just say it's pretty unique. Come on in and welcome to the room tour. So as you guys can see from my outfit, I am wearing an authentic Japanese clothes, and this is an authentic Japanese hotel here in Sweden. So as you walk in, this is the main living area. Then we have a double bed, and then across the entire back of the room, there are these cool privacy shades. Here comes the coolest part, the bathroom. So as you can see, we have this massive wooden tub, not much privacy, but if you are in the tub, you are gonna have an insane view. I have no idea what this is made for. I'm not sure if this is for your hands, your hair, your face, I don't know, but there's 2 of them. Yeah, I mean, they have an entire room for it, so it must be important. We explored around, got a massage, and even tried the Japanese baths, which was a whole experience on its own. Honestly, this was basically our first time in this challenge that we actually got to slow down for a second. And we really needed it. But we can't sit here forever because time is running out, and we still have 3 tasks to complete. So once we recharged, we headed off into Stockholm to find a souvenir. A bunch of people had told us that the best place to start was this big red and black building by the water. As we got closer, there were heaps of people just hanging out on the grass outside. And the weirdest thing was, there's some sails poking out of the roof. We had no idea what that meant, but it definitely got us curious. So we head inside, and that's when we start to figure it out. This is a little museum. There's glass cases with an old hat, some gloves, and also some skeletons laid out side by side. It's still a little confusing though, like what does any of this have to do with Sweden? And then it clicks. All this stuff is from one thing. Taking up the entire building is this gigantic ship. This is the Vasa. And back in the 1600s, Sweden built this huge warship to show off how powerful they were. But they kind of messed it up. It was way too top heavy. And on its very first trip, it sailed less than a mile before it tipped over and sank right into the harbor. And it stayed there for over 300 years, until they pulled it out in the 1960s. Now it's just sitting here, almost perfectly preserved. They even had this model, showing what the inside of the ship would have looked like, with little figures of sailors running around and cannons lined up. It kind of made the whole thing feel more alive, like you could picture what it was like the day it sank. You know what's crazy is this is actually probably like one of the main attractions here in Sweden, and like I bet every single school kid probably had a field trip here at like one point in their life, which means that these halls are probably the same halls that PewDiePie walked like when he was in school. Like these are like PewDiePie was probably right here.
It's like, this is like holy ground right now. This is actually insane.
After walking around and playing with the ship's cannons, we headed towards the exit, still trying to figure out where we could find a souvenir. And just like every other museum on Earth, the only way out was through a gift shop. Normally I just walk straight through, but this place actually had some pretty cool stuff. There were rows of shiny candlesticks, cannon figurines, and even these weird wooden paddles. I probably spent a couple of minutes trying to figure out what they were, but I guess they're cooler than the usual fridge magnet stuff. But then we spotted this feather and ink quill set. Back when the Vasa was being built, this is exactly the kind of thing that everyone would have been scribbling with. So yeah, maybe a cannon would have been cooler to show off back at home, but at least with the feather and quill, we can actually use it to check this task off the list. So that means task 1 is officially complete. We've come a long way, but to really earn that real tourist title, we've got to keep going, because we don't want Ryan to be mad.
If you fail, I'll be super mad, really upset.
And on the way, we walked past this fancy little building, the Nobel Prize Museum. From the outside, it seemed epic. Like this is the Nobel Prize, one of the biggest awards in the entire world. So it only made sense to check it out. Inside though, it wasn't really what we had in mind. The whole place is basically one big room. And sure, there were some cool things like old notebooks and gear from scientists, but then we kept seeing stuff that just didn't really make sense. Like in this one display, there's just a baseball mitt, a telephone, and some Tide Pods. We couldn't really tell if these were supposed to be some inventions that people had created, or if they just belonged to past winners. It was all just kinda weird. My thing is, I've always associated the Nobel Prize with peace, but this place didn't really touch on that at all. And it was also pretty expensive. So we tried our hardest to stick around and get our money's worth, but honestly, we were out of there in like 10 minutes. By then, we were already starving, so it actually worked out in our favor. Because just down the street was a little cafe that had exactly what we needed. Welcome to Josefina, home to some of the best köttbullar, or Swedish meatballs, in Stockholm. Inside, it was super nice and chill, and weirdly enough, it was basically empty. So our food came out pretty much instantly. Just in case things went sideways, we did order a little pizza on the side, but when the meatballs actually showed up, we realized we did not need a backup at all. These weren't your regular IKEA meatballs. These were the real deal. It came with this creamy mashed potato, little red berries, and some pickled cucumber on top. It looked insane. But the real question is, how did it taste?
I don't even know what flavor this is, to be honest. Like, I'm not quite sure, but I guess we'll see. Take a cut. I'm not sure if you're supposed to eat it all at once or cut it in half, but I'm gonna cut it in half, like a complete noob. And let's see. It's actually really good, and the texture is actually really good too. Like, I don't know, like when I have meatballs at home, they kind of get dry. This is like actually like really well made. It's actually so good. I wish they came with more. It's only like 5 on the plate. It's approved. I love it. It's amazing, actually. This actually might be the best. Yeah, maybe not. Pierogi is pretty good too, but this is definitely up there.
Okay guys, I'm excited to try these authentic meatballs here from Sweden. They do look really good.
It was so much better than I thought it'd be. But the only bad thing was, there wasn't really enough of it.
Oh my god, that is so good. I have no words.
Like, if I'm gonna be honest, I really think Leo and I could have ate 2 more plates all to ourselves. Still, between this and the pierogi we tried back in Poland, I don't even know which one I liked more. They were both so good. But either way, that means task 2 is officially complete. Leaving the restaurant, we were in a much better mood, so it felt like just the right time to head out and finish our 3rd task. Thankfully, no one bothered to pester us, and there wasn't any sort of chaos like Italy. People are just out biking, walking, or sitting in the parks, enjoying the sun. It actually reminded us a lot of Denmark. Not even 5 minutes later, we're halfway down the street when we look up and we see this massive church, Ryderholmen Church. Apparently, it's like one of the oldest buildings in Stockholm, and it's where Swedish kings and queens are actually buried, which is wild because we just sort of stumbled into it by accident. After staring for a while, Leo decided to start walking off. And soon enough, the streets opened up to something giant. This is Stockholm Palace. From the outside, it looks about what you'd expect. It's huge, fancy, and apparently it's got over 600 rooms, which is just ridiculous. Inside though, it kind of felt like we'd been transported back to Italy. All along the halls are these statues. Some are pretty inquisitive looking, and others look like every other statue we've seen. But the best part of it all was this. Every inch of this place was covered in gold trim and giant paintings that looked straight out of Rome. It was so detailed that you kinda didn't even know where to look. What really surprised us though was how quiet it was. Sure, there were a few tour groups scattered here and there, but there weren't any real crowds. Which honestly, I'm not mad about. And just like that, task 3 is officially complete. But the journey isn't over yet because we still have 4 more countries to visit. Time to spin the wheel. On this wheel is every country surrounding Sweden. And wherever it lands, we have to go to next. Okay, let's see where we're going. I guess we're going to the UK. Hey guys, we just landed in London, and we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark.
But we've only got 24 hours left, so let's head into the city to find a souvenir. I've been told so many times that the stereotype for London is that it's always sad and rainy, but when we arrived, it was the exact opposite. There were people everywhere. And at one point, we even came across this guy blasting bagpipes under a Canadian flag. Which was a little bit random, but still really cool. What stood out to us the most, I think, was just how clean everything looked. Big Ben, the phone booths, all looked brand new. Like the city had just been scrubbed down just for us. And yeah, we were supposed to be focused on finding a souvenir, but then we spotted this cute little cafe along the street, and honestly, there was no way that we could walk right past it. For my whole life, everyone said that the British were obsessed with tea, so we figured we might as well give it a shot. I mean, if you're gonna have tea anywhere in the entire world, the best place would have to be here, right? So we figured we might as well give it a shot. Ow, it burnt my mouth. It just tastes like water, actually. Yeah, I don't really get the hype. This stuff just tasted like straight up water. So to make up for it, we decided to order ourselves some snacks. And when they brought this tray out, we were a little bit confused. On the bottom, there's all sorts of rainbow bread looking things. In the middle, these biscuit things called scones. And on the top, a bunch of fancy desserts that looked way too nice for us. These looked far more promising than the tea we had before. But there was only one way to find out whether they were any good or not. It's actually really good. Honestly, they were really good. They were so much better than we expected and definitely fancier than anything we've eaten in the last few days. By the time we finished, we were in a way better mood. And then, right as we walked out, we spotted a gift shop. Talk about perfect timing. Weirdly enough, this place was packed. Like, not just with souvenirs, but actual people too. There were so many things to choose from. They had a whole board of fridge magnets, racks of hoodies, and all sorts of miniature statues. But in the end, we ended up grabbing this cool little figurine of Big Ben, which means task 1 is officially complete. With our souvenirs sorted, we knew we had to keep on moving. We still had to find some actual British food, and time was running out. But a few blocks later, we ended up outside this massive building, the British Museum. There was a huge crowd of people piling in through the doors, and somehow we kind of just started drifting in with them. Now, I don't know what I expected, maybe something like knights in armor, stories of kings and queens, or something just really British, but instead it was packed full of random artifacts from all over the world. In one room, there's some ancient mummies from Egypt, statues from Greece, and even a whole bunch of stuff from Asia. Basically, whatever you could find across the world was crammed into one building. But I heard a lot of this stuff was, borrowed or, stolen. So basically, we felt a bit weird walking around knowing that, but still, it's kind of insane seeing all that history in one place. The place is massive, but we didn't have hours to spare, so we basically just power walked through it all. And once we left, we started noticing all this artwork along the walls. We didn't really think much of it until we looked up and saw this massive sign that said Hamilton. And honestly, after rushing through the museum all morning, sitting down for a bit sounded amazing. Plus, we figured maybe we could grab something to eat during intermission. Multitask a little and check off our food task at the same time. So we went in, and the show was unreal. Everything from the cast, the orchestra, the energy, it was all perfect. I really think it was one of the coolest things we've done so far. When we walked out, we were still buzzing from the show, but also starving. Sure, the show was amazing, but it definitely did not fill our stomachs. So we hit the streets again on the hunt for some proper British food. And it didn't take us long to find, cause only 5 minutes down the street we found the Terrace Bar. But once we sat down at our table, we spotted this. Yup, That is exactly what you think it is. A rat. Luckily, he didn't bother me too much. He was honestly pretty cute. But we had better things to focus on. Apparently, there's a big debate about what counts as the ultimate traditional British food. But everyone we've asked said it's fish and chips, which sounds fine, but there's one small problem. I hate fish. It came out looking pretty good, I guess. There's some pickles sprinkled on top and some fries on the side, but it was a bit tough to cut through. And after some fighting, Leo finally managed to take his first bite.
I mean, it's not my favorite. Tastes a lot like fish, but not very strong fish. Not bad, definitely not great.
Which really didn't help me feel any better. And now it's my turn. And just cutting into it, I couldn't stand the smell. So I did what any sane person would do. Drown it in everything I could find. And then I just went for it.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to be disrespectful because I know this is obviously probably really good if you like fish, but I don't. Sorry, I'm actually about to throw up. I'm sorry. It's not like to be mean.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say I wasn't a fan. Out of all the foods we've tried in the other countries, this was easily the worst thing so far. But hey, whether we hated it or not, that means task 2 is officially complete. That fish and chip situation kinda ruined my mood, but we only had a couple hours left in the UK. And if we wanted to stay on track, we couldn't slow down now. So we headed back onto the streets of London again. There were so many people everywhere. The streets were packed. But luckily, we got to see one of those double-decker buses that we had always heard about. And then out of nowhere, we see this massive circle in the sky. At first, we thought it was just a massive Ferris wheel or something, but the closer we got, the more we realized this thing was huge. That's when it hit us. This is the London Eye, and we figured if we wanted to see London properly, this was probably the best way to do it. The whole ride takes about 30 minutes, which doesn't sound like much, but trust me, when you're stuck in a glass pod with a bunch of strangers, it feels way longer than that. Still, once you get to the top, the view makes it worth it. You can see everything. Crowds of people below, buses crossing the bridge, and Big Ben off in the distance. And then we spotted it. Right there, just in the distance, was our final landmark. So as soon as the pod touched down, we didn't even think, we just ran. This is Buckingham Palace. And honestly, the walk up to it might have been my favorite part. The road leading up is huge, lined with flags on both sides, and everything just feels royal. Actually royal. It kinda made me weirdly proud, even though I'm not even British. And then, when you finally get close, it's insane how big it actually is. I've seen it a million times in movies and on TV, but standing there in person feels completely different. We were pretty bummed that we couldn't get inside or anything. Apparently you can only do that during the summer tours, but even from the gate, it looked amazing. And right up there is the balcony. The one you always see the royal family waving from during big events. I don't know. There was just something really cool about being there in person. Like all those clips you see online or in the history books, suddenly it's right in front of you. And just like that, task 3 is officially complete. But the journey isn't over yet, because we still have 3 more countries to visit. And now it's time for
The Wheel of Destiny.
On this wheel is every country surrounding the UK, and wherever it lands, we have to go to next. Okay, let's see where we're going. Hey guys, we officially made it to our 8th country, France, and we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck!
But we've only got 24 hours left, so we did the most logical thing. We went to Disneyland. And wow, it was packed. The second we walked in, it was just chaos. There's families all over the place, kids running around, and plenty of grown adults proudly wearing Mickey Mouse ears. And the second you walk through those gates, the vibes just change. One second you're in Paris, the next you're in this little bubble where everything feels exciting and fun. And I've gotta say, as someone who's been to Disney World in the States, this place here in Paris actually holds up. Some of the rides here, so much better. Everything just seems a little bit more detailed and polished. It actually reminded us a bit of Tivoli Gardens back in Denmark. You can really tell Walt Disney took inspiration from that place. Except this felt like Tivoli on steroids. Sure, it's It's kind of stressful, but being here kind of makes you feel like a kid again. And it's impossible to not have fun. We spent hours just walking around, snacking on random treats, getting on every ride we could, and even though our legs were dead, we couldn't stop smiling. At some point, we ducked into one of the giant souvenir stores, and it was insane. There's shelves stacked with mugs, racks of clothes, plushies everywhere, bags, hats. It was kind of overwhelming until finally we found it. A little Mickey Mouse figurine standing next to the Eiffel Tower. It feels like the perfect souvenir for Paris. And plus, it's small enough that we won't hate ourselves for carrying it around all day. And just like that, task 1 is officially complete. But we'd already spent way more time than we expected inside Disneyland. So if we wanted to finish our second task before the day was up, we had to get moving. With our souvenir locked in and our tourist levels rising, we headed back into the city before Ryan got mad.
If you fail, I'll be super mad, really upset.
And then suddenly, right in front of us, was this massive glass pyramid, the Louvre. I knew it was big, but I didn't realize it was this big. It's the biggest art museum in the entire world. And apparently, it used to be an actual royal palace before it was turned into a museum back in the 1700s. Inside, there's something like 35,000 pieces of art. Like, you could probably live here for a week and still not see everything. The main thing everyone comes for, obviously, is the Mona Lisa. And I'll be honest, I thought it was gonna be massive. Like some wall-sized masterpiece or something. But nope, it's actually tiny. And it's behind glass, blocked off, and surrounded by like 100 people all holding up their phones. We waited, we squinted, we saw it, and yeah, I don't really get the hype. But everything else was unreal. There's these huge halls filled with sculptures, endless paintings covering entire walls, and every corner you turn, there's something that looks like it belongs in a history book. We tried to see as much as we could, but after a while, our feet were killing us. And by that point, our stomachs were louder than the crowd. So, as cool as it was, we decided to call it for now, and go hunt down some proper Paris food. So we hit the streets again, and after walking through what felt like every side street in Paris, we finally found this place called La Forêt Secrète par John Imbert. And yeah, I'm definitely saying that wrong. Now, before we even walked in, we'd already looked it up online, and damn, the reviews were pretty rough. Like, people weren't just being dramatic. Some people said stuff like, the food is as bland as the chef is arrogant, and there are literal holes in the tables. Yeah, that didn't really give us much hope, but we were here, and they had exactly what we were looking for, ratatouille. Now, if you don't know what ratatouille is, it's one of France's most famous dishes. It's basically a mix of stewed vegetables like eggplants or zucchini, and originally, it was a way for farmers to use up their summer crops. And of course, most people know it from the Pixar movie Ratatouille. But here's the problem. I hate vegetables. Like, literally hate them. So this is already not looking good for me. When the waiter brought it out though, I won't lie, I kinda got excited. It looked like they had taken it straight out of the cartoon, and I couldn't help but take a photo before I tried it. But then I take a bite, and yeah, it just tastes like vegetables. Not my thing. Having just come from the UK, where fish and chips nearly made me throw up, I was really hoping France would be better. To make up for it, we ended up ordering this weird log-looking thing. At first, I had no clue what it was, but turns out it was spaghetti. And honestly, it was amazing. If I could have ordered 3 plates of that, I would have. The whole vibe was just a little bit too fancy for us, but hey, at the end of the day, we got the job done. So that means task 2 is officially complete. With 2 tasks done, we were down to the big one, the landmark. So we set back out into the Paris streets, trying to figure out what would be worthy of wrapping up our time here. And then out of nowhere, we came across Notre Dame. The closer you get, the more you notice all the little carvings. There's angels, saints, and gargoyles. Just hundreds of tiny details stacked up over the centuries. I looked it up while we were standing there, and apparently, it's been around since the 1100s. Like, people have been coming here for nearly 1,000 years. That's insane. Part of it's still fenced off, and you can see the scaffolding where they've been rebuilding after it caught fire back in 2019. So we just stood there for a while, took it all in, snapped a couple of photos, and then we kept walking. Only a couple of blocks down the street, we saw it. The Eiffel Tower. I mean, I don't think it gets any more French than this. Apparently when they built it back in 1889, people literally hated it at first. They thought it was ugly, even called it an iron monstrosity. But now, it's the ultimate symbol of France, and over 7 million people visit it every year, making it one of the most iconic landmarks on the planet. I know back in the US, we have the Statue of Liberty, but that doesn't compare to how big this is. This thing is more than 300 meters tall, and literally makes the Statue of Liberty look tiny. And yeah, in the daylight, it's impressive. But everyone kept telling us, wait until you see it at night. So we did. Yeah, that's more like it. Luckily, we managed to find the restaurant to sit down for some dinner. And right away, the whole vibe just feels different. It wasn't as fancy as the place we went to try ratatouille, but it kind of felt better. The food comes out looking incredible, and the view? It's amazing. We're not stuck behind some glass. The Eiffel Tower is just there, towering over everything. Leo said this was his favorite part of the trip. And honestly, I don't blame him. Between the music, the food, and that view, it feels like time just stops. This is the Paris moment we've been waiting for. And just like that, Task 3 is officially complete. But we're not at the end just yet. We still have 2 more countries left on this insane journey, which means it's time for
The Wheel of Destiny.
On this wheel is every country surrounding France. And wherever it lands, we have to go next. Let's see where we're going. Hey guys, we made it to Spain, and we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck!
But we've only got 24 hours left, so let's head into Barcelona to find a souvenir. We decided to start Spain a little differently, not by walking around the city, but out on the water. So Leo and I hopped into this kayak and started paddling along Barcelona's coastline. The water's super clear, the sun's blazing, and honestly, it looks like one of those stock travel photos. There were jellyfish everywhere. Like literally, there was not a single spot without them. I swear, if you stuck your hand in, you'd either hit one or a whole bunch of their eggs. So yeah, flipping the kayak was not an option. We've both kayaked before, but man, it did not take long before our arms started dying. After about 30 minutes, we were already getting blisters and just kind of staring at each other like, yeah, this might have been a mistake. There were no crowds, no yelling. It was just our little group, the cliffs, and the open water. Every now and then, we'd paddle into the shade between the rocks just to cool off. It actually kind of felt peaceful, even though my arms were screaming the entire time. By the time we got back to shore, we were both exhausted, but we still had to find a souvenir, and that's when we saw it. Right off the beach, there's a little place called Marina Gift Shop E-Souvenir. And out of everything else along the shore, we figured this is the perfect place to lock in our first task. Inside, it's wall-to-wall with souvenirs. There's shelves of fridge magnets, jerseys, and for some reason, even some knockoff Labubus. Yeah, very Spanish, I guess. We spend a couple of minutes picking stuff up, putting it back, and arguing over buying a soccer jersey that I'd never wear. But then, tucked in the corner, we find the perfect thing. A mosaic bull figurine. It's covered in bright colors, super detailed, and honestly, nothing seems more Spanish than a bull. Out of all the souvenirs we found so far, I actually think this one might be one of my favorites. And plus, it's small enough that we won't regret carrying it around the rest of the trip. And just like that, task 1 is officially complete. But even though I was starting to feel like a real tourist, we couldn't really chill yet. We still had 2 more tasks to go, otherwise Ryan was gonna get really mad. So we figured we'd make our way through the city to find where we could check off our next task. And that's how we ended up walking up to one of the most famous spots in all of Barcelona, Park Güell. We'd seen so many photos and videos of this place online, especially those bright mosaic benches that wrap around the park. So yeah, we were hyped to finally see it in person. But after about 2 hours of walking in circles, we couldn't find them. Like, at all. We literally followed the crowd the whole time, checked every path, and still somehow managed to miss the one thing everyone comes here to see. It was honestly kind of funny, but also really annoying. Still, the park itself was unreal. There's people scattered around playing guitar, couples having picnics, families taking photos. The whole vibe is just really calm. And from the top, The view of the city is insane. You can see everything. And then right in the middle of it all, this huge, super weird looking church thing towering above everything else. I wonder if we can check it out later. But after all that walking, we were starving. And if there's one dish we know we can't leave Spain without trying, it's paella. Just down the road, back towards the beach, we came across this restaurant called Salt. And honestly, the vibe alone sold us. Now, paella is kind of a big deal here in Spain. It started out as this farmer's meal, where people just threw in whatever they had. Rice, veggies, meat, seafood, and somehow it turned into one of the most famous Spanish dishes ever. But when ours came out, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. This thing looked way too fancy, and it kind of felt like a crime to cut into it. But hey, if we wanted to complete our second task, we had to do it. Cutting into it was a whole workout. Even Leo was struggling. And when he finally got a bite, he just kind of looked at me and said, "Yeah, it's okay." Great. That really boosted my confidence. Now it was my turn. And honestly, after how things went the last couple of countries, I was bracing for the worst. But you know what? I really liked it. The rice was fine, but the meat was so good. I don't know if it was just because we were starving or if it was really that good, but either way, I was happy. And just like that, task 2 is officially complete. With food out of the way, we figured it was time to do something bigger, something that would actually count as a landmark. So instead of heading back into the city, we went in the opposite direction back to the water. We didn't really have a plan, but we figured if we just keep going down the coast, we'd eventually find something cool. The water was warm and super clear, and since we'd already been kayaking earlier, we thought we might as well jump in for a bit of snorkeling. So we were kinda just figuring it out as we went. But then we realized there were jellyfish. Like a whole lot of them. Apparently they're called fried egg jellyfish, which honestly, yeah, kinda checks out. People say they don't sting much, but still, I wasn't gonna test and find out. Just as I turned around, I spotted one of the coolest things so far, a cuttlefish. I couldn't quite tell whether he was dead or alive, but he was really cute and I had never seen one actually out in the wild before, so I was pretty impressed. Further down the coast, we started hearing people cheering. Turns out there was a whole bunch of people cliff jumping, and for some odd reason, we thought, yeah, let's do that too. We started off on a small one first, just to warm up. And honestly, the height wasn't even that scary. I was more freaked out by the 100 jellyfish waiting for us below. Still, once you're up there looking down, your stomach just drops. But after you jump, it's pure adrenaline. We've been all over Barcelona today and somehow still haven't found a landmark that feels big enough to end Spain on. We're losing daylight and honestly, a little hope. Then it clicks. We grab our stuff and just start running, weaving through scooters, taxis, and what feels like a million people until we finally see it. This is La Sagrada Familia. Up close, it doesn't even look real. It's massive, like way bigger than I imagined. It towers up over 300 feet into the sky, covered in carvings and sculptures from top to bottom. It doesn't look like any regular church I've ever seen. Everything about it just feels different. Apparently they started building this back in 1882. And now, 140 years later, it's still not finished. But once it's finally done, it's supposed to be the tallest church in the world, even taller than St. Peter's Basilica we saw back in Italy. And if you thought it looked good from the outside, just wait until we walk in. Yeah. It's crazy. The first thing you notice are these massive pillars that stretch all the way up like trees. And I think we came in at just the right time. As the sun drops, the light shines through the stained glass windows. Nobody tells you to be quiet, but everyone starts to whisper. And I mean, I get it. How else do you react to something like this? And just like that, task 3 is officially complete. But it's not over yet. There's only one more country standing between us and the finish line. So let's head back to the hotel to see which country we're going to next. And now it's time for the Wheel of Destiny. On this wheel is every country surrounding Spain. And wherever it lands, we have to go to next. Let's spin the wheel and see where we're going. So we officially made it to Portugal, the last country of our challenge, and we cannot leave this country until Leo and I complete 3 tasks.
Number 1, you gotta find the coolest souvenir you possibly can. Number 2, you have to eat a traditional food. And number 3, you must visit a famous landmark. Good luck!
But we've only got 24 hours left, so let's head into Lisbon to find a souvenir. So to kick things off in Portugal, we figured we'd start our hunt for a souvenir the most Portuguese way possible, by hopping on the famous Tram 28. The only problem, apparently everyone else in Lisbon had the same idea. The line was insane. It wrapped all the way around the block, and every time a tram pulled up, it was already packed. We must have watched like 10 of them go by before we finally squeezed our way onto one. And when we managed to hop on, it was cramped. Like no personal space whatsoever. But once it started moving, it kind of felt cozy. At one point, our driver pointed out this old church and casually mentioned that one of the chapels inside is decorated with real human skulls and bones. So yeah, that's definitely not the kind of souvenir we're looking for. After about 30 minutes, we hopped off right in the middle of downtown and stumbled across a store without a name. Like literally, there's no sign, no logo, nothing. Just an open door with a bunch of stuff inside. So obviously we went in, and honestly, it was kind of awesome. There were shelves full of random souvenirs, little tram figurines, mugs, basically the usual tourist stuff. Apparently Portugal, and especially Lisbon, is famous for these hand-painted tiles. You can see them everywhere, on walls, on buildings, even on random doorways. Every single one's different and really weirdly satisfying to look at. So when we found this one, I felt like it was the perfect souvenir. So that means task 1 is officially complete. With another souvenir locked in, we are feeling like real tourists, but our stomachs are growling, so we need to find food fast if we don't want Ryan to get mad. And just down the street, we stumble across this massive glass building, the Oceanário de Lisboa. Everyone kept telling us Portuguese cuisine is big on seafood, so we figured this might point us in the right direction. We walked through the whole thing in like 45 minutes tops. Still, I can't lie, it was pretty cool. There were these giant glass walls where sharks just glide right in front of you, and it's kind of surreal. They also had some penguins waddling around and a bunch of jellyfish floating everywhere, kind of like the ones we saw back in Spain. But after a while, it started hitting us that none of this stuff was actually food. We're standing there starving, watching fish swim around, and it just made us hungrier, and also a little guilty, honestly. So we cut our visit short and went back into the city to find the real deal. And later on, we came across this restaurant, Drogaria, which apparently meant drugstore. Bit of a weird name for a restaurant, but it had 4 different Michelin star awards, so it seemed to be the perfect place for what we were looking for. Cozido à Portuguesa. It's basically Portugal's national stew. Back in the day, farmers would just toss all their leftover meats and vegetables into one pot, let it simmer for hours, and somehow it turned into this dish that eventually became a national classic. But when it came out, it wasn't quite what I expected. These just looked like gyozas draped in some seaweed and dirty water. But does it taste any good? Let's take our first bite. It was honestly really good. It reminded us a lot of the pierogi we tried in Poland, but I think I would have to say I like this a whole lot more. So that means task 2 is officially complete. So here's the thing, that cozoto we ordered earlier, turns out it wasn't even a proper meal. It was actually just a starter, which meant by the time we hit the streets again, we were still pretty hungry. And as we're headed out to track down our final landmark, we spot something we haven't seen in almost 10 days, the Golden Arches, McDonald's. At this point, it just feels right. We've been away from the States a while now, hopping through 9 different countries, trying everything from Swedish meatballs to French ratatouille to British fish and chips. But now, we just want something that feels like home. So we cave. The menus are different here, but we keep it simple. A cheeseburger and a McFlurry. And I'm not even kidding, that cheeseburger, better than the fish and chips back in London. It doesn't take long though before we're back on our feet, strolling through Lisbon streets, bellies finally satisfied, and that's when we see it. The Lisbon Cathedral. This place is ancient, built way back in the 1100s. It survived fires, multiple earthquakes, and countless restorations, but it's still standing strong. We started this trip in Italy at St. Peter's Basilica, one of the most famous churches in the world, and now ending in Portugal with another cathedral that stood for nearly 1,000 years, it just feels right. And just like that, task 3 is officially complete. It's crazy to think that 10 days ago, I had never traveled anywhere in my entire life. And then Ryan Trahan challenged me to visit 10 random countries in 10 days to prove I have what it takes to be a real tourist. And I think now I finally get what that means. It's not about seeing every landmark or taking the perfect photos. It's about the weird moments, the stuff that doesn't go as planned, the people you meet, the food that makes you almost throw up, and the ones that totally surprise you. It's all about being there. So if you've watched all the way through, thank you. This trip has been wild, and if you want to see where we're going next, make sure to subscribe, because this might have been the last stop for now, but it's definitely not the end of the journey. See you guys soon.